Woo, baby, that's what it's all about. That's what we've been waiting for. It was the greatest night of our lives.
You're Locked On the Hockey Jets, your daily podcast on the Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Harrison Lee, an avid Winnipeg Jets fan and an online blogger. You can follow me on Twitter at HLLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. As always, thanks for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day, every day. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all of your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. Doing so, of course, is always free of charge and ensures you never miss another episode. Of course, you know, the most important thing above all is that we just really love and appreciate your support. So once again, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And now, baby, we have been waiting for these moments. For a very long time. We have been waiting for the kids to make their arrival for the Jets, and wow, did they. Winnipeg called up Parker Ford, Colin Delia, Brad Lambert, and Nikita Chibrikov. And of course, only two of them played tonight, but it's the two prospects that I think most people were most interested in seeing, Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov. And boy, oh boy, did they have a fun night. Chibrikov scored his first NHL goal, and Lambert recorded his first assist. Honestly, could have had a goal, and I think it would have been well-earned. But the two young guns were not the only youth products leading the way. Cole Peretti had a 2-goal game, and I really want to dive into his performance because he did so much more than just score. Before we get into all of that fun stuff, though, just wanted to shout out our friends and partners at Monopoly Go. I admit it, I've got a competitive side, and as a big fan of Monopoly Go, this mobile hit twist on a classic Monopoly game is great because you can join your friends and download Monopoly Go and compete against them or with them to make huge points results. So go download Monopoly Go free on the App Store or Google Play. Now, like I said, the Jets just had a huge game against the Vancouver Canucks, and only huge in the sense that it was a beautiful way to show Winnipeg's future, right? This was a game where a lot of our young prospects and our younger players got a chance to really play elevated roles. And for the most part, we saw a pretty fun performance. I think that this is, a really nice reward for a couple of young kids who have worked very hard with the Moose. And we also saw some, cool veterans maybe get a bit of decent ice time deployments, like Nikolai Ehlers playing his 9th highest ice time for a game this season. And, of course, some of the other guys, Monahan and Toffoli, played quite a bit. Sandberg got a nice promotion. Just a lot of feel-good moments. And generally speaking, the Jets outplayed the Canucks, right? Vancouver actually used most of its NHL roster. There were only a couple of players from them that weren't in the game. Even Demko actually got in that, which I didn't think he was going to, but he played. His second game back since returning from injury, ironically injured against the Jets. So I guess congrats to him for getting healthy in time for the playoffs. But the Jets promptly welcomed him back with, a 4-goal or 3-goal against performance, and certainly, some nice opportunities here for the Jets, both on the power play and at even strength. The things that didn't work, perhaps, were more on the defensive side of the game. I think Logan Stanley has kind of looked more and more like Logan Stanley. When you don't have Dylan Sandberg attached to his hip, it's a bit of a rougher stretch, right? He tends to really rely on Sandberg to do a lot of the zone exits and puck clearances, but when he's not playing with Sandberg, he tends to try to do stuff on his own, and that's where things have kind of been a little bit messier. So if you're going to play Stanley, make sure that Sandberg is with him. Otherwise, Sandberg played with Pionk, and they actually had a pretty solid game together. Pionk's mistakes were generally not too egregious, and Sandberg was able to do a lot of the heavy lifting, so that's positive. Could be a pairing to consider because Brendan Dillon can probably play with almost anyone and be halfway decent, so I wouldn't worry too much about him if he were to split off and maybe move to the third pairing. But otherwise, right, let's talk about the kids because that's what you're here for. That's what you want to hear about, and they were super fun. Brad Lambert, starting off with him, had a monster evening. He was electric out there. I thought he was creating tons of great chances. He had some really slick passes on the power play, and he almost scored on one of the later power plays. It looked for sure like he was getting a tap in from a rebound situation where there was chaos in the crease, but somehow the puck just stayed out. He also recorded an assist on a goal earlier in the game, which was nice. He assisted Velarde's game-tying goal, the first one the Jets scored. This one was kind of like a wall battle that he was kind of losing, but he still got the puck down low towards the right side of the goal, and nobody else seemed to pick up on it. And Velarde was, kind of Johnny on the spot and got a great opportunity to score a nice little tuck-in goal. Exactly how you want to see Lambert kind of integrate, right? He doesn't have to be the most prettiest goal scorer, but he has to be a very creative player. And, his transition skating, his ability to carry the puck into dangerous areas, and his overall creativity, I thought were on great display. So for the Jets, this is a super exciting development. I remember shouting super loudly when Lambert fell to the Jets at 30th overall. I think it was very evident that, or at least for me, Lambert would be a special kid. And not because that there was, a load of evidence that suggested he was on, a great path. If you honestly look at his Lottie Pelicans days, it was a little bit rough, and you had to have some confidence in his ability to go back to what happened before he moved to that team, right? There were plenty of draft articles and certainly prospect highlights that showed that Lambert was an extremely talented kid, and at one point was like a projected top 5 NHL draft pick. So for me, it was just a matter of finding the right environment for him to really thrive. And since joining the Jets system, he has really taken flight, and he looks like he's honestly making the team next year. I would be shocked if he doesn't make the Jets out of preseason and camp. He looks like he was completely comfortable playing at this level, only had a couple of bad shifts here and there. And, it's really to be expected for a prospect, and I wouldn't even call them bad shifts, just some young mistakes that you'll kind of iron out over time. And certainly his creativity and his skills and the offensive chances he was able to create were very, very impressive. So, look, all I can say is get excited, because I think he is the real deal. If you're, watching of him in the Moose didn't sell you, well, I hope that this game, just a little bit of a teaser of what he can do at the NHL level, has you thinking about his next season. Chibrikov, I think he had a great game overall. The first period or so was not as noticeable, but as the game wore on, you kind of saw his forechecking ability, and he forced a couple of really nice turnovers. One of them was a nice forced turnover along the walls, and that actually led to a great little down-low cycle that ended up having him score his first career NHL goal. And this goal was an absolutely nasty release from a very sharp angle. He went far post, and Demko was honestly covering near post extremely well. And from the shooting angle that Chibrikov had, it couldn't have been more than like 20 degrees or 30 degrees from the goal line. I mean, wow, the whip that he was able to generate quickly, and the rapidity of the release and just the speed of the puck was just immense. It, kind of flew by Demko with a really satisfying thunk off the far post, and a beautiful goal, a great way to open up your account, just a nice performance. The MVP, though, for this game for me was Cole Peretti. He had a 2-goal night, and on so many occasions in this game where the Jets defense was scrambling a bit because, without Morrissey and with all the rejig and juggled up pairings and stuff, it was a bit chaotic. Peretti was consistently one of the few guys reading plays almost psychically, I guess. He would pick off pucks and passes, he'd force turnovers, and he actually cleaned up a number of really bad defensive shifts from guys like Stanley, and actually would get the puck out of the defensive zone. And he did it so calmly, so composed, and honestly just had a monster evening. And I continue to ask myself why he's not in the lineup. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I know that he's not the kind of player who will wow you with big physicality and tons of hits, but he's such a smart player that doesn't matter. His defensive work and his impact on the game really should not be understated. He is a beast, and I really hope that this year hasn't made him feel alienated to the point where he thinks about leaving after his contract runs out, because I'm telling you, he will be one of the core players of this future Jets team, and it'd be nice if he actually gets in during the playoffs, because we're talking about a dude who has 18 goals despite basically being used as like a fringe third liner / fourth liner. So, a really talented player, very big season from him, and despite not playing a lot, I think he made the most of his recent minutes. So keep an eye out for him next year, because I am very excited about his future. Now, speaking of this Jets season, Obviously, the Jets just had a first ever Jennings Trophy winner. We'll talk about that and some of the other accolades that might be coming Winnipeg's way in just a little bit. Before we go too much further, though, I do want to shout out our friends and partners at Monopoly Go. Obviously, like I said earlier, I've been told that I'm a competitive person. I like to win. I like to play games, and it's fun. I play FIFA all the time and stuff. But, gaming is kind of better when you're doing it with friends. And Monopoly Go is a great way to get in on the action from a very classic board game that a lot of you have probably played. Obviously, you've maybe grown up with it. You probably remember buying little properties and stuff on the game board and charging your friends rent. And Monopoly Go makes it portable now. It's been downloaded over 150 million times, and it's a great twist on Monopoly where you can play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. And of course, you can mess around with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties, which we all know we like to extort our best friends, right? Because that's what you do. You can also heist their vaults for riches and get yourself on the top of the leaderboards to show who's really the Monopoly expert. Of course, though, you can team up with friends and win that way. And if you take part in timed tournaments, you could earn huge rewards. So get in on the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go right now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. Hello, friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for joining us on tonight's episode as we are talking about some big stuff from Winnipeg's games, Winnipeg's season overall. We just talked about the kids really showing up in a big way for the Jets. Chibrikov's first NHL goal, Lambert's first assist, Peretti with a 2-goal performance, and a dominant defensive performance as well. Just a lot to really be excited about, man. If the present and the future of the Jets doesn't bring a smile to your face, I don't think you have a pulse. Or maybe you're just really stoic like Peretti is and, kind of doing his stony-faced impersonation. But whatever the case, obviously things are feeling pretty good. The playoffs are on Sunday, and we'll talk about what to expect from that. But like I mentioned earlier, the Jets are actually in line for a number of awards and trophies, which doesn't really happen for this team very often. I mean, if you think about the number of award winners that we've had a Vezina winner and a Vezina finalist, both of them being Hellebuyck. We've had, a Lady Byng Trophy winner. We've had some stuff like that. But I mean, in terms of really collective big team awards, it's rare that the Jets really have those. Before we talk about which trophies I think the Jets might be in the running for and ones that they've already won, just wanted to let you know something really cool that the Locked On Network is doing. If you're a Fox Sports or ESPN watcher and you have to turn down the volume on your TV because they're just constantly shouting, well, you should make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app. Of course, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, getting back to trophies for the Jets, like I said, the Jets have just won the William Jennings Trophy, and I know it's assigned to Connor Hellebuyck, but let's be real, right? Both Hellebuyck and this Jets defensive structure, along with Laurent Brossoit being an amazing backup, really led to Winnipeg conceding the fewest goals in the entire league. In an 82-game season, the Jets conceded less than 200 goals, just 199, which is pretty freaking crazy. You think about that, and it's a little over 2 goals a game, which is pretty darn amazing for a team that in previous years used to be known as one of the most defensively poorest squads in the league. There was a year where Connor Hellebuyck had below a 910, and honestly, he could have been a Vezina finalist because of just how bad the Jets defense was and how much he kept them in games. But this year, Hellebuyck was playing the best hockey of his career. Brossoit was putting up one of the best performances we've ever seen from a Jets backup, and the Jets defensively just locked it down. So really, this Jennings Trophy feels like it's shared by everyone, and I think Hellebuyck would probably say the same thing. It was a huge joint effort. I think everyone really chipped in, and it's going to lead to Connor Hellebuyck also getting his second Vezina. That should be basically a lock. I really can't see anyone else getting the trophy. I think Hellebuyck should win, not necessarily unanimously, but as close to it as he's going to get. I mean, he was a beast in net. He, for me, was the best goalie in the league. And even by his standards, this season was pretty amazing. So, Hellebuyck feels like he's on a hot streak heading into the playoffs. That bodes well for the Jets. And even if Hellebuyck struggles and something happens, guess what? You've got Brossoit to rely upon, who has been an absolute ace backup. I think he's definitely earned a longer look with another team to potentially join them in a starting capacity. I know it's going to suck not having him around the Jets, but he definitely deserves a chance to be a starter elsewhere with how good he's been this season. So just a really awesome moment for the Jets. I think Winnipeg, we were all a little bit concerned that the Jets might slip up and actually lose the Jennings Trophy. Not that it's the most important thing ever, but I feel like if you've already come this far, right, and you have a chance to steal it away from the Panthers, you've had such an amazing season. Don't lose it at the last minute, right? Make sure that you can try and get your team a trophy that, quite frankly, they've earned with their sweat and blood the entire season. The other trophy that I think the Jets might be in the running for is more an individual one, but it's going to be the Jack Adams. And I know that personally I might have a couple of other coaches ahead in the Jack Adams race, but I think Bones should be a finalist. I think he's had a really profound impact on this team. And like I said, the main things that I take issue with tend to be more on the special team side and some of his roster and line deployments. But on the whole, right, given the quality of NHL coaching these days and how the team has played overall under Bones and what it can do when it's playing it at its absolute peak and best, I think having him in the finalist conversation is absolutely fair. I think that could be a legitimate thing. And if he were to actually win it, for one thing, I wouldn't be shocked. I think there are coaches, like I said, like Brunette and maybe some others, who should honestly get the nod. But, I would not quibble with it. I think Bones is certainly a deserving coach. I think he's had a great year. And despite my reservations about some of his specific tactical things and mistakes that he's made, it's the same with a lot of other NHL coaches, right? And comparatively speaking, I think he's among one of the better guys that you can have behind the bench. So big year from him. Very happy. After all of this, the Jets obviously didn't quite get the President's Trophy or the Central Division crown. They came close on both, actually. Closer than I think any of us were really expecting. There was some discussion that the Jets maybe could win the Central this year and that there was a chance at the start of the season with all the forward depth that maybe it'd be in play. But of course, the Jets just happen to be in the toughest division, and having Dallas and Colorado constantly jockeying for first did not make things easy. But the Jets still finished with a really strong second place, and honestly, having home ice against the Avs is a pretty good feeling. I think the Jets can be very proud of their season. I think that, come Sunday, the crowd should be absolutely electric. I think the fans should really let the team hear it. I'm always one of those kinds of people that tries to give folks their flowers when they deserve it, and I think this team deserves it. For the most part this year, it's been a smash hit season. The fans are starting to sell out the stands again. Tonight's game was a sellout. I think the playoff tickets are basically flying off the shelves, if not already sold out. The hype around the city seems to be immense. I think the street party has sold out too. The vibes are just really strong with this team, and with the fans kind of feeling like it was in 2017, 2018. Look, I'm not going to say that this is the year that they do it, but I'm not going to say that this is not the year that they do it. I believed a lot more strongly that the 2017, 2018 squad was going to be the one to pull it out of the fire and win it all with, maybe the best team in the last 15 to 20 years to not win the cup. But, with the Jets being the way they are this season and the field being pretty wide open, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking aloud. I'm trying not to get too excited, and I'm trying to prepare myself for the inevitable pain that comes with hockey playoffs, because hockey is really cruel, but, you still subscribe to the dance and want to get excited anyways. And I'm talking a lot about the playoffs, but guess what? It starts on Sunday. We'll talk about that and what I'm thinking for this upcoming playoff run and expectations for the first round in just a little bit. Before we go any further, though, I did want to shout out our friends and partners at Policygenius. As somebody who sometimes makes some risky decisions, let's just say that when I go to concerts, I have gotten injured a couple of times. Just look at my wrist. You can tell that I've had some pretty serious surgery, but all of us have probably been in some unfortunate incidents, and you have to have insurance, right? You want to be protected because you never know what's going to happen, and Policygenius totally understands. They're the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and they can help save you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Like I said, I've gone through some serious injuries myself, so a life insurance policy or any sort of insurance policy is probably very helpful. I should probably be grateful that I have this opportunity because, a lot of folks don't. And, you want to make sure that your family is taken care of. And that's one of the most important things. What's great about Policygenius is that they help you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts are on hand to help you talk through all of it. And of course, if you really need to find something that's maybe more in your budget range, you can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find the lowest price. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. Hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, thank you so much for joining us on tonight's closing thoughts as we are just wrapping up with some, frankly, big hype and excitement around the Jets heading into the playoffs. You probably heard me giddily talking about the prospects and Winnipeg winning in really fun fashion against the Canucks, but none of that really matters in the grand scheme of things because we're talking about playoffs now. The Jets are facing the Colorado Avalanche, and guess what? The Avs just absolutely massacred the Oilers. It was a big win for them. They are currently up 5-1, and it's still just the second period intermission. So obviously we're expecting them to continue that strong performance. But you know what? I think the Jets feel pretty confident about things after literally dissecting the Avs just a couple of days ago. That 7-0 win was one of the most impressive wins of the season because the Jets took a really fast, really skilled, really speedy team that in previous years has given the Jets absolute hell, and they shut them down, right? They honestly shook their faith and confidence that they could play against the Jets in this game. And I'm not going to say that that's going to be how the rest of the series goes, right? Once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. But for the Jets, I think it was a huge confidence boost. I think it was a really impressive performance, and it followed up a really good game against the Dallas Stars, where the Jets kind of had a similar approach. You shut down the neutral zone. You make it absolutely impossible to get through without suffering a few bumps and bruises, and you make maintaining possession of the puck a real chore. And that's what the Jets did. They shut down a lot of that fast counter rush chance sort of stuff. And it's not like the Avs didn't have that in their game against the Jets recently, but overall, right, Colorado is used to running the score up against opponents, and the Jets didn't allow that. They didn't give the Avs much of a room to breathe. And so it was a really impressive game. I thought it was a phenomenal evening. And the best part was that it was on the road. The Avs don't lose at home, and yet 2 of their 8 or 9 regulation losses at home this year have come against the Jets. So if Winnipeg even was to have to go on the road to Colorado to open up the series, they probably would have felt pretty good about their chances. Now, the series so far looks to be, by most odd makers, a relative split. I think my one concern that I have is that the Avs are a battle-tested playoff team that are cup winners. They have the championship DNA, they know what it takes, and they have experience to stay composed under pressure in those key moments. They're not going to have some of the guys that they had on that playoff run. Obviously, Landeskog is one of the biggest absences. He's not going to play anytime soon, so it sucks for him because he's basically been not playing for 2 years now, but he is trying to come back next year, so we'll see how his body holds up after that. But otherwise, I mean, you've got some new faces. You've got Middlestat and some others. But this team at its core still plays an electrifyingly fun brand of hockey that requires huge rush counters, rapid puck movement, and the kind of stuff that usually does give the Jets fits. Where I think Winnipeg really needs to win the battles is in that neutral zone space, and also making sure that you actually clear the puck effectively. I think that's something that against faster, speedier teams, the Jets have run into some big issues with. Logan Stanley, Neil Pionk, guys like those have struggled against that rapid, aggressive forecheck, and sometimes they turn the puck over with some really bad passes and stuff, and everyone does. I mean, I talk about Ehlers all the time, and he is kind of known for handling the puck like a hand grenade. This year, it's been less of a problem, but he still has moments where he'll make some really boneheaded plays. Overall, though, I mean, you just have to think about how to slow teams down, and that's where the Jets, I think, won in the trenches in the past couple of games. The game against the Canucks, I'm not really going to count because that wasn't really a full Jets lineup, and honestly, Winnipeg just kind of looked to get through this game and maybe even secure home ice advantage should they advance to the conference finals. They did. That's great. Not really an important thing to think about right now, though. Right now, the Jets have the Avs, and with the Colorado roster being as experienced and battle tested as they are, and with some new reinforcements with Middlestat and names like that, I think this is going to be a really close series. I do think the Jets come out of this one, but I mean, we're talking about like a squad that's still got Rantanen and McKinnon. Lehkonen is still pretty underrated. You've got Nichushkin, who I don't know what's going on with him after that whole weird situation of him at that hotel. I don't know whatever came out of that, but in terms of his on-ice performance, he's still one of their most effective scorers. And then, of course, on defense, Devin Taves is still a beast. Makar having a bit of a down year by his standards, but, he's still pretty dangerous. Walker, I think, has fit in quite nicely for the Avs. He's a great two-way, offensively minded guy, and it seems like he's been having a pretty good season. But at the end of all of this, there is one particular advantage that the Jets have that the Avs do not, and that is who's in net. Annunen and Georgiev are just nowhere near Hellebuyck and Bressois. And if the Jets can chase either of these goalies early in the series, that's going to be a tremendous advantage because it plants seeds of doubt, and it shows that, that is their critical weakness. Georgiev and Annunen aren't really NHL caliber starters. I mean, technically they could probably start, but if we're being honest, right, we're looking at two goalies who have put up pretty poor numbers this year, not really out of the norm for how the league has been this season. The overall average save percentage has taken a real nosedive, which just makes what Hellebuyck and Bressois have done all the more spectacular. But in terms of this playoff series, if you can get to either of the goalies and really hit Colorado's lack of defensive structure at times, especially on defending certain counters and stuff, I'm looking at Jack Johnson when he's on the ice. This could be a series where the Jets might win it in 5 to 6 games. I think the faster that you can get through Colorado, the better, because it'll give you more time off for what will likely be a series against Dallas, right? I think we're all expecting the Stars to be one of the teams the Jets are likely to face, and it wouldn't shock me if that happens in one of these rounds. So, the Jets, the sooner that they can dispatch the Avs and get through this with as minimal energy expended and minimal minimal injuries, I think that is absolutely the most preferable option. Probably not going to happen. I mean, it might take the full 7 games, but either way, I'm expecting a fun series. Let me know your predictions down below. I'm going to call the Jets in 6, but let me know what you think in the comments below or at my social medias at HLLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. For tonight's episode, though, that is going to be all the time that we have. I thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day every day. Tune in tomorrow for a co-hosted Locked On Colorado Avalanche and Locked On Winnipeg Jets crossover previewing the upcoming series. But like I said, for tonight's episode, that is all the time that we have. See you here tomorrow night and this weekend. And as always, go Jets, go.